The Public Safety Committee meeting of Monday, March 4th, 2024 to order. Clerk Dean, would you mind noting the attendance tonight of Councilmember Kara Christensen, Councilmember Catherine Cotton, Mayor Ross, City Administrator Mike Chambliss, and the chiefs and other folks in the council chambers. First of all, we'll move on to the approval. I know, I'll get it out eventually. The approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Christensen, seconded by Councilmember Cotton. Any discussion or changes? It's all good? Okay, with that, we'll take that as being approved. We now move on to public comment, and Zoom does this wonderful thing. It's there and then it disappears. Let me see. I do not see any members in the audience other than staff. Does anyone wish to make public comment? I do not see anyone online. For those listening in, if you care to make public comment, you may do so by emailing us directly those comments, and we'll make sure that those get right into the record. Just keep in mind that these things are to be germane to what we're talking about here today on the agenda, or things that are a concern to you. We do give you up to 3 minutes to present in person or online. And seeing that there is no one here, I'm going to just double check that someone hasn't joined us late that would like to speak. I do not see that. And with that, I will close the public comment unless anyone objects and stands up. And hearing none, we will move on to the next item of business, and that is to approve the minutes from the February 20th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Cotton, second by Councilmember Christensen. Is there any comment or discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we will accept the minutes as presented. That brings us up to the next item on our agenda. I'm going to call on Chief Brian Lynch to introduce the topic on peer support program and the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Good evening. So I've been doing police work for 23 years. In the first half of my career, mental health for first responders was non-existent. It's been a focus over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, and it's become more prevalent within police departments and fire departments. It's not such a taboo subject for first responders to discuss anymore. And last summer, we had an officer that was on duty that suffered a serious medical incident where he had to be transported to the hospital, and he was taken to Swedish in Issaquah. And as you can expect, we had a group of officers that also came in on their own time to sit in the waiting room to find out what was going on. And while we were there, an Issaquah officer showed up and introduced himself. And he said that he was a peer support officer and that his department was there to assist in anything that we may need, or our officer may need, or an officer's family may need. And in and of itself, I was very impressed with the fact that he showed up and was there for us. But in the back of my mind, I didn't know this officer. I'm not sure if any of my staff had a relationship with this officer. So when he said peer support, kind of the only thing that made him a peer was that he was a police officer and he wore a similar uniform and a badge. So moving from that, I started to think how much nicer it would be if we had our own peer support, that maybe we would get more takers to actually engage a peer support officer, or you know, kind of deal with some of the stresses that go on a daily basis with police and with the fire department. So I met with our mental health professional and found out that we both believed in the same thing when it came to peer support. She was all on board and wanting to do this, and she did all of the legwork to, to get the homework done of what we needed and where we could go. So with Stephanie Butler's help, we decided to send 3 people down to California and go through the 40-hour training to become a peer support officer at the end of the year last year. So we're lucky enough to have 2 of them here. We've got our mental health professional, Stephanie Butler, and Officer James Aguirre, that I'll ask to come up and to give you an overview of the program and talk to why it's so important, and then to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Hi.
Evening.
Like Chief Lynch said, I'm Stephanie Butler. I'm the mental health professional for the police department. And this is James.
I'm James, patrol officer here and one of the members of the peer support group.
And James is an officer that I frequently co-respond with. So when he's working, I'm typically in the car with him. So we spend a lot of time together, and just given his experience, Chief Lynch and I, when we were deciding who was we thought would be a good fit for the peer support team, James's name was first on the list, of just given his experience. And I tell him all the time he needs to go back to grad school to become a therapist, because he's pretty phenomenal. So one of the cool things about peer support, at least with our department, is that we have partnered with the Issaquah Police Department to kind of merge our peer support teams together, just because we are a smaller department. And so sometimes it's nice to chat with maybe somebody that you don't work with every single day, but we still share the air with. So if there's something significant happening in Snoqualmie, North Bend, Issaquah's hearing about it, and vice versa. So if something significant is happening in Issaquah, we're hearing about it. Sometimes we're going to the calls. And so it just felt like a good move to kind of merge them together, and it's been really successful so far. You wanted to go over the history of what it is?
Yep. So also going off of what Chief Lynch said earlier, this is fairly new for law enforcement, even when I started, which wasn't all that long ago. I started police work on the east side of the state, and one of my FTOs over there told me, basically, don't ever tell anybody that you're having problems, otherwise they'll take your gun and your badge, and you'll be out of a job. That's what one of my trainers told me. I had a case where I was first on scene to a dead infant, and the extent of the help I got with that was the deputy that responded with me saying, well, you'll remember that one forever. And then he left to sign out of service. And that was kind of the extent of the mental health for first responders that I got over there. But peer support isn't a new idea at all. It's just sort of new to law enforcement and other first responders, kind of just getting into it now. But it's been around since the mid 1800s. The first documented peer support group was in a psychiatric hospital in Paris in the mid 1800s. And it was a new thing there that the doctors were trying, and they found that it encouraged people to be gentle, honest, and humane, owing to the fact that these are peer patients at this mental hospital. They understand what these patients that they're helping are going through, and that's kind of the core of peer support. Is people are more willing to open up to people that they know are experiencing or have experienced similar things. Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous are also familiar, successful peer support programs. The purpose for us, some FBI statistics I looked up, the average police officer in America experiences about 178 critical incidents in their career, where the average person experiences maybe 2 to 3. And it doesn't account for other adverse childhood experiences, critical incidents they have outside of work, and just the cumulative stresses of life. There's also police specifically, because I wrote my notes specifying police because it was part of a training that we did, but police specifically, I would imagine the statistics are fairly similar for fire, potentially even a little bit higher. Police are also 2 to 4 times more likely to suffer from PTSD than the general population. Peer support provides support resources and a place to vent and share, which is legally protected from disclosure. That was because, well, the laws around that and who your communication is protected with were established due to there being so many suicides, because people were worried about losing their job, coworkers seeing them differently, them not being able to do the thing that they dedicated their life to. So peer support is one of the few groups of people that, for example, cannot be subpoenaed to testify against an officer for what they told them in the capacity of peer support. And that if anyone wants to look it up, that's an RCW 560-060.
So one of the things that we really wanted to stress is what peer support is not. It is not a like clinical therapy session. So even though I am a licensed clinician, when I'm talking with an officer, we're not getting into like diagnostics, we're not setting treatment plan goals. Like it's just like, I'm listening. Okay, this sounds great. Thank you for sharing. And then we can refer to a clinician. So when I'm acting in a peer support role with our officers, it's not as a clinician, it is as a peer. Because if they're going to a critical incident call, there's a 90% chance that I'm also going to that call. And so it's that same shared experience, peer to peer. And then if I'm in need of peer support, if something happens, like I remember the first time I gave CPR, I was like, holy cow, I never thought I would ever have to do this. And I did not enjoy it. And I spoke with our firefighters because I called them and I was like, what the heck did I just do? Like, and they're like, you did great. But I can't call like my girlfriends who are therapists because they've never done it. So it was really nice to have that shared experience with fellow first responders. And so what a peer support session might look like is typically it's officer initiated, or if we have a support staff member at the police department or an admin person, they would initiate it and just say, hey, can I chat with you? And it really just looks like a conversation. Sometimes it can be a 15-minute conversation, and sometimes it can be an hour-long conversation. And then at the end, it really varies of what the person's goal is. If like they're wanting to find a counselor or a therapist to chat with, if they're wanting to find a physical therapist, if they're wanting to talk to a financial advisor, something, we're referring to them. So we're not solving their problems. We're just listening to them. As they told us in our training, we're listening for the pain and then we're referring.
Sometimes that's all people need, is just
Yeah.
to vent, to talk to somebody that has similar experiences, to, confirm that what they're feeling is not out of the realm of normal. When you experience so much weird stuff like we do, sometimes you need someone to say, oh yeah, I have had that experience. The way you're dealing with it is similar to how I dealt with it. You aren't weird for feeling this way. And then if they do need more than that, we're able to refer them to other resources.
One of the really cool resources that we have as a police department, that WASPIC offers to all police departments is the Cortico app. So now all of our officers have access to that. It's personalized to our police department. It has our entire peer support team listed on it. It's linked with our employee assistance. So if they just want to look at the app and they like don't want to come and chat with one of us, they can look at the app and have a direct resource to clinicians, doctors, whomever that are already within network, which is really great. And so the state actually pays for every police department in the state to have access to that. And then you just tailor it towards your police department.
There's also other great stuff on there, like a self-assessments or various. Like, oh, I feel like I'm drinking more than I should be. Am I at a dangerous point yet? Well, you can take the self-assessment and figure out if this is something that you might need additional help with, or if you have, if you feel like you might be getting towards a clinical level of post-traumatic stress. That's something that you can. They have self-assessments on there, and it's also anonymous. So it's not, that's one of the cells for the department to get around that idea of they're just looking for a reason to get rid of me or bench me or whatever. It's anonymous. There's no way, you don't have a login that's specific to you. Your name's not on it. So you can seek that help without worrying about it destroying your life, which is, a worry that a lot of officers have that prevents a lot of people from getting help in the first place.
And it's nice too, because the wives and spouses of our officers have access to it as well. It's a different login credential. But being a spouse to a first responder has its own challenges as well. And so the app is offered to the families as well. And then also once our officers retire, they will have a lifetime access to that app as well. There's another cool thing on there also about like nutrition and sleep, which is really cool. There's just, the app is very versatile and it's got a lot of great resources on it.
And the city doesn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's through the state. So
Yeah, exactly.
What was the app called?
It's called Cortico.
Cortico?
Yeah, CORDICO.
DICO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, question?
With the RCW you mentioned as far as things being confidential, is that because you folks went to the training down in California, or would just a group of officers from the department, if they were kind of debriefing with a coworker, is that considered confidential?
Should get
So,
done that.
yeah, so it's specific to, it even breaks it down further into you have to be a member of your a certified member of your department's peer support group, and that group has to be set up prior to whatever incident that the person is coming to see the peer support person about. And if that peer support person was involved in that incident, it's not confidential. So the peer support person has to be completely uninvolved from the incident, if it's a critical incident type thing. Uninvolved from an incident, they have to be a certified member of the peer support network that was established prior to that incident. So it can't be something that you set up after some major event. And I also think probably they wanted to avoid people being able to like meet secretly to get their story straight or something like that.
Right.
So
But-
like if James and I were on, if we responded to a critical incident and we were with maybe 2 other officers or 3 other officers that were on shift, those officers could not come and talk to us in a confidential manner. They would either have to go to Officer Doucette, who wasn't on the scene, or they would go to the Issaquah department. And that's why we did it with Issaquah, just because if 2 of us are occupied or one of us is there,
There's a good chance
right,
more is gonna be.
yeah.
but you said certified, so that's what I wanted to understand is, did you get certification
Yes.
with going to this program
Yes.
that qualifies you for that? Because I know we've tried, oh, dozen years or more ago, setting it up an internal peer support group within the fire department. And, while it was three of us that were, doing research on it, because there wasn't really courses at that time, it was mostly consisted of, you hear about a bad call and you're, like texting somebody like, hey, are you doing okay? Or if it's a new person or new volunteer or something like that. But now, and we're trying to restart it now. So, looking at what is the best course of action. The department has utilized the or made available to the employees the Code 4 Northwest
Mhm.
for first responders, which is a 24/7 group. And but we've got some folks within the department that want to do that. So, maybe looking at what do they need to do as far as, getting, kind of foot in the door and being classified as, certified. So it would be a confidential type
And
of thing.
Probably 90% of our class when we went to this was firefighters.
Mhm.
So it was a fantastic class, I think, for any group looking for a peer support program to set up.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, it's 80% of the fire department's calls are use medical issues.
Yeah,
and stuff,
absolutely.
so.
I was at chatting with one of the firefighters 2 weeks ago. We had a big sit down, like debrief about all of this, and I shared all of the things. So it's happening. It's
Yeah,
but-
and so what I was actually wondering is, hey, is this something that, we can work together with these types of things, or?
absolutely, yeah. We can get together next time you're at the department or after this, whenever, and we can chat more about it, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
I was chatting with firefighter Tozier about it, and
Mhm.
so
And her, I
yeah,
talked
yeah.
quite a bit too, so.
So we're certified in peer support and then also in critical incident stress management. And in the state of Washington, to have a peer support team, you have to have that. It's called SISM.
Yeah,
So all of the Issaquah officers have that, like 2-day SISM class, and then we have it as well.
and a while ago, we used to actually, when there was something big that happened, we would have a debrief following the call, like with police and fire and other agencies and such. And so, but I don't hear about that happening as much anymore.
That was part of the SISM class was talking about what that looks like and how you set one of those up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give Councilmember Christensen a chance to.
Thank you. I had one question, but I just want to follow up on that if that's all right. So when they do the group debrief though, that wouldn't fall under the same
No,
ability to shield the
It
conversation,
initially, because
right?
that was like decades ago, we would
Okay.
do the debriefing. It was more talking about, okay, the call, bad call, what was your part in it? What could we have done differently? Well, how could we improve it? And it usually always kind of filtered down to, you could tell when people were affected. Now we have an unofficial debrief every month where we meet off site and, and
Those are still great. We still like encourage and recommend those, just it's because it's basic human connection.
yeah,
And I mean, we debrief every call, like even if it's a small call, we're like, okay, well, how did that go? What should we do next? Okay, we've seen to this person before, et cetera, et cetera. So those are still great. The piece where it becomes like the confidential, where it's protected,
Mhm.
is that if the call would result in some sort of like legal process.
Yeah.
Where
The easy one to go for us would be an officer involved shooting.
Yeah.
There's an officer who's involved in an officer involved shooting. There's 5 people on the planet you can talk to that can't be subpoenaed to testify against you. You peer support clergy, your doctor, your spouse, and a mental health professional.
such as your mother.
No, they can drag your mom into court.
Yeah. So that's the piece where it comes into play. And then in that case,
Mhm.
because he said mental health professional, even though that's what I am,
It would have to be. there
I
have to
am
be
there.
not,
Client.
Yeah.
patient
right, it
privilege,
would
yeah.
have to be
Not
an
there.
established, like,
I'm a therapist,
Yeah.
psychiatrist, counselor, something like that.
right.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like a fantastic program. Obviously, it doesn't seem like there's a downside in any way, shape or form. My question is having 3 of you, is that sufficient? Or is this a program that you'd like to see building? Will the partnership with ISQA be sufficient? Or if we get fire involved? It seems like this is a great start, but
Yeah.
is it gonna be,
I
it's gonna
think
be
we
enough?
would definitely like it to grow. I'm like looking at, like, can I say? Yes, we would like it to grow. I would ideally like there to be a peer support member on each shift.
Mhm.
Just because I'm on day shift primarily, so the folks that are on night shift don't see me. Granted, they can always call me. And James rotates every few months, but it's challenging. So I would ideally would like there to be more.
That way you can ensure that the peer support member isn't involved in the incident.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least
Right.
one isn't involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And I would say our department has a fairly good working relationship with the Issaquah Police Department.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we
They help
go,
us all the time, so.
we help each other out all the time. I've been down there for several calls where they've come and been like, can you send stuff? Like,
Mhm.
and they invite us to their debriefings and things like that. So I think the partnership will continue to last and still be successful, but I would like there to eventually be more, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be helpful to have the exposure such that there was one on duty at all times and they could also reach out to a different
I
unit or
think,
different PD.
and correct me if I'm wrong, the only thing we're working out with Issaquah, as far as peer support goes, is if
Mhm.
they could provide legally protected peer support for an officer involved shooting
Yeah.
that occurred in our jurisdiction.
And vice versa.
Just because looking at, that's probably the highest likelihood of, a lawyer trying to force the issue and challenging that confidentiality as well. They're not part of your department.
Right.
The law doesn't say it has to be a member of your department. It has to be a member of the peer support, your department's peer support team. But I think the city lawyers for both cities are, that's on their agenda to confirm that.
All right.
Good.
Any other quick questions? I want to thank Stephanie Butler and Officer Aguirre for stepping up, sharing this with us. I think the mental health is incredible component that we need to put more attention to. We hear about trauma-informed communities, ACEs for kids and adverse childhood experiences that carries on, and the folks that are on the front lines every day and what you go through is part of our duty is make sure that everybody's healthy, and it begins with the first responders, and it's also keeping our community healthy, and certainly something that we'll keep as top of the dialogue. So thank you very much for presenting.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for allowing
Thanks,
us to
Phyllis.
go.
So that's a great segue into the next piece, and that is our priorities. And thank you very much to the council members for sharing those. I do not want to lose sight of those things because like this, there are a lot of things that we can do proactively. The hard thing is trying to figure out what is it that we do as the council that is, we simply set policy. We help enable, and there are a lot of things that are on this list that we went through. And what I'm hoping for in the next 15 minutes remaining of us going through and just saying, okay, these things are policy that the Public Safety Committee can address. These are things that the administration can address. Some of these are budget items. And while we can provide some support, I think it's important for us to prioritize and focus on the things that are public safety directed and other things that we can help encourage or support. And I went through and I took everybody's comments and kind of put sponsors to it. So if you don't see your name on this and you say, that's something that I want to support, we'll just add it. But I think that it shows too that there's everything that was brought up is very important. is just, this is incomplete. This is gonna be something that we'll just come back and circle back to time and time again. I did not prioritize this and say, this is the first thing we're gonna do. This is the next thing. And so I think that, first of all, if we could go through these and I'm very interested in the council members Cotton and Christensen of saying, okay, if out of all these, and it's a long list, I can't squish them all onto the screen. These are the things that we need to work on right now, the next 3 months. So, I'm kind of struggling at how to go about it because it is a long list. And so, I think if you can remember, Councilmember Christensen, your items are first, and then Councilmember Cotton's are next. And then I kind of threw my name in a couple spots. I threw in some other names that I know that is already on your list. So if you see your name, it's like, I didn't say that, then we can correct that. But I think if we go through these, first of all, is that we talked about personnel strategies, overtime, upstaffing. I think we're all on the same page about that being a concern. However, that's really a budget item. So
Priority.
it's a priority
Mhm.
that we make sure that it's part of the budget, and the budget is kind of mid-year, right? Some of the things we could be talking about now. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna go through and ask for suggestions or help from my fellow council members. If you have a better way of dissecting or diving into this, I need some direction. And I want it to be an open process.
Kara, do you want to say what your priorities are on the items that you had listed? As far as if you were to mark them as, yes, sir.
Well, some of them are a little bit related, and then some, including, it sounds like the budget, we should not be dealing with at this point in time, even though it is a pretty big piece for me personally. But it sounds like that would be better handled at a different moment in time. So, well, I would normally prioritize that one pretty front and center in terms of making sure that we're staffed now and in the future. And in terms of retention and whatnot, that should, I think, be moved elsewhere.
Okay,
It sounds like.
can I put it in as referred? And the referred part is to budget?
I think the city administrator has a comment.
Yes.
Clarifying question, maybe some ideas. So I don't know how long the spreadsheet is. I can see 12 things listed and it looks
Mhm.
like it scrolls.
It does.
And I got a chief without support in both departments. So the request that I'm making is that we actually fine tune this down to maybe 5 priorities. Because we have budget, we have in the police department's case, we have collective bargaining going on. We have a North Bend bargaining gonna occur. There's all the day-to-day stuff that comes up and having Brian try to satisfy 32 different priorities of the committee, you're not gonna get our best work. You're not. Now, some of these things, for example, the budget, there's a budget calendar coming very soon. That's gonna lay out the whole year as we go through budget. And unfortunately, it's not mid-year, it's more towards the third quarter that we're gonna be coming up with budget answers, but that's okay. Because specifically in the police department's case, we have to get through the collective bargaining and we have to address the North Bend contract before we can even begin to decide what the scope of our staffing is gonna look at. So there's an order to these things also. So I just ask that the committee keep all that in mind for their benefit.
Right.
Thanks.
I totally agree. So let's move on. Street safety. Is that something that we can address in the next 3 months?
I don't know, is it? I mean, if we need to get, more of the, like up on the parkway, the solar
Cameras or lights or.
displays, yeah, speed displays, yeah, or something like that. I mean, is that something that takes a while to get? I'm not familiar with those.
Councilmember
Timeline.
Christensen?
Well, I think that there's probably a couple different components of that. One is if we're just doing cameras, I think that's one kind of a conversation, but we need to have Captain Lynch in, and it sounds like there may be a presentation coming down the pipeline as well. And then just in terms of having the time and bandwidth to do more of the traffic safety, I think that that will probably be dependent on staffing and whatnot once we have more folks out of the field training and on the street as well. So I don't know that that's something that we could solve in the interim. I think it would be good to have maybe some of these items come back, every month, fourth meeting, something along those lines, so that we can keep track of them while recognizing that that may not be something that we can move on in the immediate.
I'm gonna put it down as a 2 as a placeholder. 1 is top priority, if that's okay, and then we can come back and fine tune this.
And it
Let's
is
move
effective.
on. I'm sorry. We have a long list and I just want to go through these kind of a shotgun style so that we get through
And some are redundant from.
them. I've tried to put them together. They may not be
Mhm.
totally spot on. Yet. Overdoses fentanyl. Yes.
So I had a category for the opioid training, and I don't know if you had put that down below or we could combine it.
We can combine those two. If
Yeah.
That's okay.
So and I would put that is something we can accomplish in the next 3 months.
Okay, let's put that as 1 and I'll put opioid as,
So training specifically for city staff and council members.
okay,
It's scheduled for this month.
Yeah,
okay,
April, this month or April?
Oh, no, too. But
Okay. But
it's scheduled.
okay.
there's also some updates on that. We're going to be doing more within the county on
Okay.
that too.
Let me move on to the next one if I may, and please forgive me if I'm a little bit fast on this. Echo Glen, is that a 1, 2, or a 3?
I mean, I would
a
put that
one.
very high, yeah.
Hi,
It's
Hi.
a one, except they can't do it till June, so.
well, they're making progress. and
Yeah,
good.
that's good. absolutely.
Climate change wildfire. As it relates to the fire department, is that a 2 or a 3?
That I suspect will probably go in with our strategic plan in that kind of frame, as well as the CEMP. Is that accurate? Chief?
The last piece you said.
Well, that'll probably be addressed partly through the strategic plan update as well as the CEMP as it goes forward.
A little bit, I think it's one of those that it's important bandwidth wise, we're probably not gonna be making any inroads on that until we get next year's budget. I would be saying when we talk about staffing or equipment or things like that. Yeah, it's nothing that we're gonna accomplish in the next several. So more long term, I would say.
Okay. Are we okay with putting that as a 3? Longer term?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
the next one is new bills in legislature. The legislature just wrapped up, but I think it's always important
Mhm.
to stay abreast of what's going on. Is that a 1 or a 2 or a 3, if you were to say?
I would think that it would be important to keep at the top, just so that to the extent that we need to reach out and contact our state reps, that we continue to do so.
1,
I also assume that folks have reached out about Echo Glen for funding, but it's another
okay.
request that folks do.
Okay, excellent. Ensure safe, affordable housing. Yes,
So that was one that, at least when I brought it up initially, my perspective on that was just making sure that there was an opportunity for police and fire to be reviewing codes and things like that. And as we move forward with trying to find locations and move forward with plans for affordable housing, that they get a chance to review so that any necessary or helpful changes could be included in that, as well as a code review that I assume would be coming down later on.
okay. Probably a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, probably.
I'm gonna put it as a 2. It may be more of a 3. Policing priorities. This is one about crime, property crimes versus traffic infractions.
Well, it was
right?
more of geared towards the, with personnel shortages,
Personnel.
what the department's priority was, and obviously having enough officers to patrol for crime prevention with some of the issues going on versus, how important is it to set up a speed trap or, writing traffic citations until there's enough folks to, handle that. And that I would leave at Chief Lynch's discretion.
Would that fit more under street safety? If we had to combine topic, or is it more
I think it's
personnel?
personnel.
I'm gonna make some fast notes there. We can come back to these. Housing solutions, that's specifically for
What's-
officers and first responders.
Yeah,
right?
that one, the professional development, we're really more of, again, personnel being able to, have incentives for retention and attracting, fire and police personnel.
Yeah, and that comes into a whole lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Administration on the professional development and
Yeah.
refer back to the chiefs on that, okay. Additional revenue sources, that's kind of a budget related one.
Yeah, that was regarding the ground transport, by fire. However, also tied into having the personnel to do it.
Okay.
So again, that's a
So-
priority.
And that kind of ties back with budget and all that, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Joint public safety meetings. Between this city and the city of North Bend. Should that be a 1 or a 2?
Two for me.
Okay,
Yeah, I would agree with two. My one hesitation is just as we're going forward and dealing with contracts.
Okay.
We may want to defer to the administration for timing of when they'd like to see that happen.
okay, sounds
We don't want to
good,
get in on the front end and bungle it.
great. Department accreditation, I don't know if I even spelled that. Fire is ongoing and the other one's police, which is a 2-year span. It's important. Is it a 1, 2, or 3? Two, okay. Two's okay. Two's okay. It's still a priority. All right, strategic plan, that's more of administration. That came directly from our fire chief.
Talking the fire department one or the city, yeah.
Is that with accreditation part of it, or is
It
it
is.
separate?
We need to get it completed. If the city's not gonna have one this year, then the fire department's gonna have to pay to have one on our own.
Ooh.
Regardless of the little one that we're doing amongst ourselves, so
Uh-huh.
it has to happen for accreditation, it's just the timing of it.
1, 2, or 3? Yes,
I would actually say that both of them should be a 1.
1,
Yeah,
okay.
because if
That
you think
can-
about the
Mhm.
purpose of doing the accreditation, right, is to make sure that we have the best possible police and fire department that we can have. And a lot of the things that are going to be tested and looked at, well, not tested, but are going to be reviewed and weighed in on are things that will affect the department as a whole. And while that may not be covered under our purview, I do think that we should be supporting it as a 1, because I do think that those are really valuable.
That's
So, sorry.
very useful feedback. Thank you. CIP equipment, including the first fire engine that's on order. Is that a 1, 2, or a 3?
One.
1.
Yeah, my one comment on that one would just be that the equipment in CIP will also be going in at a certain time as we're dealing with the budget. So I don't know that it kind of depends on then whether we're looking at the importance as a 1, 2, or 3, or we're looking at timing there too, because I think that would be something we'd also want to defer to the administration on.
The first engine's already been ordered.
Yeah,
so
it's been
that-
ordered. It should be here
That,
in the
that
summer.
timeline's already been set.
So
Yeah.
maybe a 2 then is what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah.
Okay. CEMP. I love acronyms.
Community emergency.
That's the comprehensive emergency management plan.
Okay.
Requirement that we have to have it for state. It was due at the end of December. I did get an extension on that for 1 year. Based on what was going on at the end of last year. But I would like to get that finished sooner than later. So my goal is to have that done by the end of the second quarter.
So I hear a 1.
To you to be able to review and approve and take to council. It has to be approved by council.
Okay, thank you. I hear a 1.
Mhm.
Okay, next one is 911 abuse enforcement. Yeah. Chief Lynch.
Consent for legal, so it is evident. I would be probably bringing it to you by the end of this month or early April.
Okay, 1 then. Okay, next one is also you, the loaned executive programs coming up in May.
That goes hand in hand with the accreditation.
Okay.
And that's what we are spending some time right now going through that, trying to get ready for that. It's not a quick process, but that is probably the most important thing on my list, behind the North Bend contract.
Okay, excellent. Building facility upgrades, 1, 2, or 3.
So probably a 3.
North Bend contract negotiations, that really is an administration I see.
Right.
Should it be on this list?
I still don't understand what the list is for.
We're just trying to prioritize the focus of public safety committee.
That's,
And there's some things that are going to be outside our scope. Some of it's going to need, the support of, 3 of the 7 council members, and it helps in that regard. But there's only so many things that we can accomplish, like you mentioned. And while it's important for overall, is that really something that we need to be overly concerned of, or is it a council level
but
consideration?
as council, you set policy. So are you asking for policies on all these things?
Yeah.
Or are you letting the mayor know that these are your priorities that you would like her to focus on?
We
Because
are just doing this as a committee of what's important to us, because otherwise what comes here is from the administrative side, not from the representative side, and it's just kind of a 2-way street.
I don't get what do you mean, the representative side?
Well, it's just, are we more proactive as a committee in helping to set the direction, or are we reactive to what is brought before us? And hopefully from the representative side, we hear from our neighbors what is important to them. And that's the connection, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, I'm always the disruptor that goes with the whole innovation center. And it doesn't need to be on this list if we've got a lot of things to cover, and it's not to say that it's not important to the city. It is important to the city, but what are the things that we can affect as one committee? Yes.
I would say that specifically for the North Bend contract negotiations, I would pull it from this list just because we probably shouldn't be talking about anything that would be subject to that in this kind of an environment. And again, just letting the administration run with that topic.
Totally. And then the last few are traffic school alternative, off-leash dog issues from. Okay. That's fine. Okay, and then budget year, we've kind of already covered some of those budget things up above. And we've put it, I think, to the top. Yeah, we're deferring it over to the administration on those budget items. Okay. All right. Capital plan for public safety, I think that ties back to the other one that we had, CIP equipment. We can probably put those two together. Unless there's any strong opposition. So let me, yeah. All right, this is the end of the list and I was running out of time. So we're gonna kind of finish up with that. Any other comments on this? What I'd like to do is come back later. We'll kind of polish this up a little bit more and just keep it top of mind. And it helps because I do meet with the chiefs and to make sure that we cover the priorities for the committee members as well as the administration. Any other comments?
I'm not sure why the prime contract is on there. I think it'd be similar to,
I
The other
can
thing they're
take
working
that
on.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're kind of having a brain dump of ideas when we went through this and I don't get paid to do this as a professional, so you kind of get to watch me struggle at putting this together. But I think from my position, I'm sure for council members Cotton and Christensen, it's nice having the opportunity to have a little bit input on what we consider as a committee. All right, with that, is there anything else for future discussions that you'd like to bring up? I know it's short of time, but I did want to point out this last week of the Snoqualmie Valley Record, there's a nice article about the challenges of policing in Snoqualmie Valley and the work that the police department is doing and responding. Thank you very much for that. One other one is critical Care Enclosures Act that has been proposed by County Executive Dow continues to move forward in King County. However, it was planned for 2025 that they are extending that closure. So if you're interested in watching that, let me know because we'll stay on top of that as well. I spent through Sound Cities Association, we had a great meeting and we got to hear both sides of that whole issue and I think it's very particularly important, and I pointed it out with having Echo Glen here and the challenges that we have seen of moving a facility that was opened in 2020. Now they're looking at closing that $242 million facility and taking those residents and putting them out in houses in community neighborhoods across the county. And we've already heard from many people, many elected people, many appointed people, from the sheriff's undersheriff to the Superior Court judges that are in opposition of this. So we'll keep on top of that as well. So with nothing else further to come before us, I'll call for our closure of our meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
With no adverse action, we will go ahead and close for tonight. Thank you very much. It is 5:54 p.m.